we haven't talked to you obviously since the election. You want to just go through? I know we were talking a little bit before we came live that you said you're just up and down in the roller, like I think everybody is. So, just talk us through all of that. Your thoughts about the election and anything you want to say about that before we turn to happier thoughts of democracy dying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a disaster because for all the reasons that.
Oh, she's frozen.
I blame Merrick Garland.
And I freeze again. Back? No, frozen still.
Okay, you're back. You're back.
You're back.
Okay. I mean, it's a disaster for our democracy because we have someone who will be moving these levers of power who has no respect for, the things that make America actually great. Good public schools, an economy that isn't run by a kleptocracy, national security that actually protects us against enemies, foreign and domestic, including protecting against Putin's predatory agenda abroad and for the U.S. And so it is. I think it might actually be an unmitigated disaster. Like, I don't know what the mitigation of the disaster is. I'm pretty sure it's an unmitigated disaster. And it also sort of came as such a shock, in part because there was certainly genuine enthusiasm at the rallies for Kamala Harris and Coach Walz. There was a lot of enthusiasm, but clearly some people stayed home. I don't know whether it's due to exhaustion or racism or sexism or some combination of all three. But when you draw the lens back, the reality is that, more than 70 million Americans did not vote for this. 3 million more Americans apparently voted for Trump. Some percentage of them now claim they didn't know he was going to do X or Y, like you said, LB. Like, I didn't realize he was going to, because like you said, Greg, the coverage was so poor in some ways. And you had major newspapers like USA Today and the Washington Post and LA Times basically kowtowing to Trump beforehand and not actually issuing the statements of their editorial boards that he was fundamentally unfit for the job. And you have this, so as we're all dealing with the shock and the horror of this man who committed crimes that I think are well documented. Certainly grand juries felt there was sufficient evidence in multiple instances. You have him coming back in and trying to install his criminal defense lawyers at the Justice Department, like no longer the Justice Department, basically the criminal defense department for Donald Trump.
It's a racket, his protection racket.
Yeah. I mean, Nixon must be like just having massive envy from hell. Like, wow, I did not aim big enough, just firing the independent prosecutor Archibald Cox. I should have just installed my criminal defense lawyers over there at DOJ. So now we're in sort of trying to find a way through it. And how do you respond to this scenario? I was saying to Greg, like, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition, like in my you don't really say it. But there was one meme that I'll add that I think might tee off the next part of the conversation, which is one of my friends posted, there is one thing that's always true about clown cars. It is shocking how many clowns keep coming out. And that like, wait, there's another clown coming out. Oh, wait, that person for that. No, that person, so it is a live, horrifying clown car. Not funny. I only just to try
it's gallows humor. We understand.
It is gallows humor. And I think we need it. Yeah. That was one of the other things that we were kind of talking about earlier today, Lisa, how are we supposed to be, because being outraged and, going through that whole thing it's just not healthy. That's not going to help anybody. Especially yourself, even if you only want to just help yourself, it's just not helpful. Yeah. But we have to bear witness and we have to call it what it is. And I do think gallows humor is a way to go, to just get through it. Yeah.